Are you serious? Are you serious? Folks, I'm going to share with you a scathing report that Heidi has done some great research on as it relates to Japan and Fukushima and the lies and the false propaganda that's literally been released upon the world and certainly the Japanese people. Now, we know that yesterday was the 4th anniversary of 3/11/11, that powerful earthquake that hit Japan. It shook the ground for over 6 minutes. It brought a tsunami inland 6 miles and left 6 nuclear reactors melting down. It also tipped the earth off its axis 4.8 inches and shortened the days by 0.1666 seconds. It also moved the island of Japan 8 feet, according to GPS coordinates. Now, 2 years after this quake, 26,000 people died. There was a report by the United Nations released by Huffington Post, and this was posted. I will put the link in the description. This article was posted May 31st, 2013, a little more than 2 years after the 3/11/11 earthquake. And this is what the United Nations reported. The evacuation of tens of thousands of people helped prevent rising cancer. I said help prevent rising cancer rates and other health problems after Japan's Fukushima nuclear disaster, the world's worst in 25 years, according to the United Nations scientists. The radiation exposure following the reactor meltdowns more than 2 years ago did not, I repeat, did not cause any immediate health effects. What? Are you serious? The United Nations, that is your report? The United Nations Scientific Committee reported on the effects of the atomic radiation, said after its annual meeting 2 years after the fact. Now that would be contrast, of course, to Chernobyl, that 1986 Soviet reactor explosion, which sent radioactive dust across much of Europe, which is believed to have caused thyroid cancer in some children. Now, a magnitude 9.0 magnitude earthquake and tsunami hit Japan on 3/11/11, killing 19,000 people. The UN says actually it was 26,000, but who's counting? And devastated the Fukushima nuclear plant, spewing radiation and forcing 160,000 people to flee their homes. It was actually 250,000 people, but who's counting? Actions to protect the inhabitants in the area, including evacuation and sheltering, significantly reduced the exposure, according to the UN, to radioactive substances. The scientific body said after the session to prepare a report for the United Nations General Assembly. These measures reduced the potential exposure by up to a factor of 10. And senior members of the Wolfgang Weiss of the United Nations Nuclear Committee. Now, quote, if that had not been the case, we might have seen the cancer rates rising and other health problems emerging over the next several decades. But since they were so great, the United Nations was so wonderful in their response, they have prevented, according to this report, cancer rates from rising at all and saved the world, basically. Are you serious? Are you seriously serious? Now, Heidi found yesterday, ABC News, on 3/11/2015, this is the report now, 4 years after the fact. ABC News reports Fukushima disaster, radiation levels poisoning, cancer risk, and the 4th anniversary of the earthquake. The triple nuclear meltdown, it's actually 6 nuclear reactors, but again, who's counting? And the world's worst nuclear disaster since Chernobyl has caused has caused thyroid cancers. It used to be 2 people would get thyroid cancer for every 1 million children before Fukushima. Today, it's 100 confirmed cases per million. We went from 2 per million in children to 100 per million in children. But the UN says that the precautions and the response and everything that was done prevented the cancer risk from rising at all, and that they saved Japan. Unbelievable. Now, let me just tell you something else. There was another report that came out also yesterday, and this you can find on the Natural News, and here's how they report it. There's a 6,000% increase in cancer rates at Fukushima. Is that where they're going to hold the Olympics in Tokyo in the year 2020? And the baseball and softball games will actually be played in the stadiums in Fukushima, Japan. Are you serious? You won't need lights there because everybody will be glowing from the radiation. Well, as the reports from individuals like Chinko Shina, a supporter of the Fukushima Collaborative Clinic, talked about exploding rates of thyroid cancer in children, as well as an epidemic of leukemia, heart attacks, and other health problems. The Abe-led government and U.S. continue to sweep all this fallout of Fukushima disaster under the rug. And obviously, they got a UN report to work from. They don't have to tell anybody anything else because the UN said it's all okay. Now, why does Fukushima continue to be a see no evil, hear no evil event? You can watch and watch the rates rise. I mean, it's obvious what's happening there. But wait, my son Brock, who is a U.S. Army veteran, 6 years, and a tour of duty for a year in Afghanistan, brought me a report the day before, which is kind of what's got us thinking we better go back and see what's going on. Back on March 10th, which was 2 days ago, this report, Natural News, the United States Navy sailors exposed to radioactive fallout from the Fukushima nuclear disaster have been falling ill, even as the Defense Department insisted that they were not exposed to dangerous levels. You know why they can say that? Because of this worthless UN report. They can say, no, we moved you away. You guys were not even exposed to it. Many of the sailors have now joined in a class action lawsuit against Fukushima operators and builders. According to Tokyo Electric Power Company, even if they wanted to, which many of them do not, the sailors would not be able to sue the U.S. Navy, according to the Supreme Court ruling from 1950s, known as the Ferris Doctrine. Soldiers cannot sue the government for injuries resulting directly from their military service. But on March 11, 2011, this massive earthquake and tsunami triggered multiple meltdowns at the Fukushima nuclear power plant in Japan. It is and was and still is the worst nuclear disaster in history, releasing twice as much radioactive material than the 1986 Chernobyl disaster. So what does it mean? The same day the aircraft carrier USS Ronald Reagan was redirected to the coast of Japan to participate in the relief work for the Fukushima survivors. When the sailors from the ship later became to fall ill, Congress asked the Defense Department for a report on the issue. The Pentagon concluded that the sailors had not been exposed to radiation or contaminated water to cause health effects. Yet in the 4 years since the disaster, 500 Navy sailors from that ship from that day have fallen ill. 247 of them have now joined a class action suit a 100-page legal complaint chronicling their symptoms. They are filing a suit, not against the United States Navy, because they can't do that, but against this 100-page legal complaint chronicles the symptoms of airplane mechanics suffering from unexplained muscle wasting, a woman whose baby was stillborn, a sailor whose health problems they tell him must be genetic, even though he has an identical twin that's perfectly healthy, and case after case of internal bleeding, cancers, abscesses, thyroid dysfunctions, birth defects, and it goes on and on and on. There's no way 500 U.S. Navy sailors from one ship get disastrous cancers in 4 years. Are you serious? But the United Nations says that everything's fine, it's over with, we need to move on. Folks, I'm going to put links in the description below. I felt this report was so important. The truth needs to be spoken. In the Bible says there will be spiritual wickedness in high places. And trust me, the United Nations is as wicked as it gets, and it is literally the stepping stone to the new world order. Give your life to Jesus Christ. We are running out of time.